Thanks for having me. And I'm apparently connected because I can hear my mic. Just to pick up with the final quote from Africa, just a funny thing that I realized from Rick's speech about getting up running when the sun rises. Imagine up in the north of the Nordics in the summer. It must be a lot of running because the sun is always up. Don't talk about the winter though. First rule of presentations and communication is know your audience. And I, of course, know that I'm in Helsinki and in Finland, and I can see how you're spread out. It's like a bus queue up here in the Nordics. It's not close together. But the rest I don't know. So I'm going to involve you. How many of you in here are from outside the Nordics? Some? How many are consultants? That's the outside Nordics, they are consultants. How many understand Swedish? Shit, I have a problem. I have the whole presentation in Swedish. No, I'm just kidding. What you see here is just some press clippings that I picked from the daily business newspaper in Sweden yesterday. The first one is about Microsoft building a data center here close to Helsinki, where it's very secret. And I know that this is not a very big one, but at least it's a good news just the day before standing on stage. The other one is a little bit more tricky. Doug Richards touched upon it also, the leak in Apple iCloud, private pictures from celebrities leaked out. And of course, that's one of the challenges for the cloud and collecting data in that way. And especially when celebrities get caught in this, it will be a big sort of buzz all over the place, of course, as always with celebrities. Let's see if I can get this one working. Yeah. So, but first, a few words about me. And the interesting thing that I realized is that I actually started with very basic communication. I did more signaling, and that was the Swedish Navy. So I do this, did it, and I think it's still the thing that works when you go to war, because everything else will be disturbed. And I actually started working before the internet, which makes me pretty old, but it's not so long time ago, actually. And when I first started at the first advertising agency, I've been all over the place. I've been in communications, the Navy, training, global marketing, etc. But I have a long period in time in marketing and in communications. And the first advertising agency I started in '95. And the big questions that our customers, the corporate customers, had then, should we be this web? Should we be on the web? That was the big question. And that's not so very long time ago. And now we heard also from Doug that if you hear about some new things and you Google it and it's not on the web, it doesn't exist. So now it's the opposite. If you're not on the web, you don't exist. So it's an interesting shift in a very short time. And of course, today I have the world's best job, working for TeliaSonera international carrier, talking about the internet backbone, the internet and what drives traffic. And that's for sure the most important thing for years to come, to make society and business grow. So it's amazing. But I always say that I have the world's best job, because if you don't, you should shift jobs. Just to remind you also, the digital sphere, I saw here a hashtag. Everyone knows what a hashtag is. Please tweet, share, because we are a few here, but the messages here should spread over the net, of course, to make these insights come to a bigger audience. Let's see where we are. Yeah. Today's presentation, I will have a short introduction just to set the scene. Then I will have 3 main topics that I will discuss. I will show one film, and I will have 5 conclusions in the end. And of course I have too many slides because I really like this and too short time, so I have to speed up. But my ambition today is that my examples that I share with you should sort of inspire you and connect to your everyday life and say, oh, that was interesting, maybe if I apply that in my business, I can find this. So sort of what I say, and all of us on stage say, if you add your everyday life to that, you will find new solutions. And that's what's interesting with the sort of new sharing economy. And the second part, of course, is that you should understand why the Nordics is such an excellent place for data centers, because that's the overall topic for this session. But first, a little bit about TeliaSonera. I'm not going to talk too much about it. It's used to be the former telco incumbents, Sweden and Finland merged, and now we're a group of fixed and mobile operators. We have operations in Europe and in Eurasia, which is interesting because there are 2 completely different scenarios. And you can see that later on in my presentation also. And we have a lot of eyeballs connected, of course. But at the bottom you see the very well-kept golden secret of the group, TeliaSonera International Carrier. Maybe it's because it's such a long name, no one remembers it, it's difficult to say, we can say TSIC instead. And we are actually one of the top players on the internet backbone. A Swedish company who built fibers end 90s, expanded in Europe, and now become one of the leading key players on the global internet. These figures here are actually live rankings measured in the routers in the internet backbone, ranking how many customers that are connected directly to your network. And that is, of course, important because direct connection counts. And right now, we're actually top 2 globally. That's pretty amazing. Given that the internet was actually invented in the US, and of course the major US players have always dominated this. So we are on par with one of the big American players. We have actually been number 1 now, at least 30% of this year so far, so we're catching up. We are number 2 in Europe, Africa, number 1 in South America, a really interesting market, and number 4 in Asia. But that's the technical presentation of us. I'm more like this one. What do we actually do? Of course, it's a lot about fibers and routers and connectivity and megabytes and bandwidth and so forth. But what do we actually do? We are actually the carrying infrastructure of business and ideas. So we instead say that we carry the big ideas of tomorrow. We enable new companies like Twitter, Facebook, the gaming industry, entrepreneurs, etc., to reach a bigger audience and spread over the planet. So that's what we are doing. And in doing that, we of course have some points here. We of course have direct connection to the Nordic data centers. We have 100 gigabit per second. That's a little bit more than you have back home in your house, the connection speed on our lines. We were the first to have that both in Europe and North America. And we connect directly to 85% of the European ISPs. ISPs are those who connect to end customers. And then we of course do a lot of trials. We challenge everything. We're the first to do a 1 terabit trial. And soon we are going there in the super channels, really going broadband in the backbone of the internet. So today are the topics. I'm going to talk about what actually drives demand, not just talk about the solutions. What makes the demand grow so fast that everyone, Cisco, everyone showing figures about this hockey stick, the power, the megabytes, everything goes up. But what's the reason? Then dive into the internet ecosystem because it's really interesting. No one seems to understand what is the internet. It's something unambiguous, something you can't touch, but it's actually a really interesting system. And finally end up in a data center location. But to start, setting the scene, the intro. Anywhereization is a trend or a very tricky word that we have come up with to explain the change in the world. That we nowadays always want to be connected wherever we are, on any device, on any time. You know, after a while you expect to always be connected. If you're not online, you're not alive almost. The next generation, I think I saw figures like a little bit more than 50% of the 3 years old in Sweden know to use an iPad and Google the internet. It's 1/3 of the 2 years olds knows to use an iPad. When those grow up, we will have a fantastic, interesting situation. And the second one is the mobile mind shift. Everything goes mobile. We started with fiber, but the new countries, skipping fiber, the developing countries, they go directly to mobile. Like this, I saw this the other day. This is amazing, you can't believe it. 92% of South Korean data traffic is 4G. Imagine that. Also touching back to Doug Richards talking about how they really connect everyone in those countries. He also talked about the sensors. This is a couple of months old now. It's the Wired magazine, talking about wearables, the next generation, and all the sensors connecting everyone. And that links, of course, back to this. I really love this speech. I don't know how many have seen. Anyone have seen this? Kevin Kelly? Google it, go and look. Kevin Kelly is one of the founders of Wired magazine, and he did a TED talk back in 2007. And at that time, the web was exactly 5,000 days old. And he speculated what will happen the next 5,000 days. And he actually, already then, a couple of years ago, talked about this, the big one, the machine, everything is connecting, the things that Doug Richards talked about today. The cloud, we call it. It's a horrible word. It can never be good to cloud something. I don't think the cloud suppliers like it either. And it's tricky. And if you look at the trends online, we're talking about the cloud today. These are search trends, sort of trending what words are hyped at the moment. And we can see cloud is already going down. There are new things coming up. And people make fun of it, of course. So, with this introduction, everyone wants to be connected. We have the cloud. People don't understand it exactly. But what is actually driving demand? Why not ask our future end users? What do they think? What do they believe? So I'm going to show you a 1-minute film now, hopefully.
We've been called the spoiled generation. But that's not fair. After all, you created this monster. You gave us everything we clicked on.
You're talking about buying clothes online? Well, sweetie, we're talking about printing them.
The future of gaming? Let me put it this way. If you're a gamer, you'll soon know what burning flesh smells like.
Cambiar a la cámara del casco. Pase a la izquierda, pase a la derecha. Tú eres un fanático del hockey como yo. Te fascinaría ver lo que ellos ven. Estar ahí en todos los partidos, incluso en Chile. Pero ahora estoy aquí por los gritos de la multitud.
Слушай, говорили я...
Do I speak English?
Конечно. Я могу по какому...
Of course.
Как говорится.
I can speak any language. Some of you still don't get my jokes, though.
So, yeah, we might ask a lot. But think about it. It's not likely we're going back, is it? You can't predict the future, but you can be ready.
The interesting thing is that we made this film almost a year ago. And looking at these things that we talk about, the sort of 3D printing, the simultaneous translation, smell in games, I don't know, but most of them are actually reality today. You can buy a thing that simultaneously translates for you. So it goes really, really quick. But the main takeaway from this is, as we all know, if you get used to something, like always having connectivity, being able to communicate with anyone, etc., you won't go back. You don't settle for less. It's like when I'm living in Sweden, we have great connectivity and you get used to it. I go down to Germany and the hotel Wi-Fi sucks. I get mad. And that's the next generation. They will have totally different demands on us. People won't simply go back. And surrounding these are, in addition to anniversation, a lot of other big connectivity trends. Everything is social, everyone is sharing. You in the room here now hopefully are sharing what we are saying. A flattening world, really interesting. The digital divide when people get access to knowledge all over the place. I'm coming back to that. Connecting the dots, the more the merrier, the more people that get connected, the more value of the network, etc., etc. But so what? I say this will affect our business, but why? I'll give you some examples. These are taken from Internet Society. How many have heard about Internet Society in here? Not so many. They're really interesting. It's a non-profit organization working with the development of the internet, the future of the internet, to be open, transparent, etc. And we sponsored this is from their first in a series that will pop up every year, the State of the Internet report. It picks up the development of the internet and the future and the challenges and what to do with it. Really interesting also for you guys, even if you're not directly involved in internet, but you certainly have to connect to the internet. This is a great example that they pick up there. This is a guy called, let's see, his name was W. Afate. He lives in Togo. And that, as you see, it's categorized as the least developed country by the United Nations and ranked as a really bad country to do business in. That's his conditions. He should be lost, no future, whatever. But thanks to the internet, connectivity, crowdsourcing, connecting to other people around the world, he managed to use, all the waste, the e-waste that we produce, it's shipped to Africa and they burn it. He found another way of using it. He took the e-waste, knowledge and fundraising on the internet, and built a 3D printer for $100. Isn't that amazing? It shouldn't be possible, but thanks to the connectivity, the sharing, and the internet. And thanks to this, he's now nominated for NASA's International Space App Challenge, Afate from Togo. Or this guy, Batish Moyangabayar, he's 15 years old, lives in Mongolia. He did the test online on MIT's online course and managed to score so high, so he's now been accepted both at Berkeley and MIT. And now he shares with YouTube videos with his peers in Mongolia how to solve things using the internet. So he's actually have his own channel using this to share. Or business models. How many know about Uber? Quite a few. And I know why you know. It's because the ones who don't want Uber have told you. Taxi drivers, they are challenging the business as it is. What can you do? Yeah, we can say it's unfair and dress in red t-shirts and stand on the square and protest. You can sort of urge to the patriotism, like made in France, but this is not a baguette. You can say it's dangerous, public is at risk, or even illegal. You can't do this. You can blame Google, of course. Or if nothing succeeds, you can hit this sort of unsafe, very illegal, underpaid cab driver in this horrible car. But something is wrong here. The only one who's happy about these protests is this guy. It's Uber, because they have got an enormous publicity of this, of course, the PR. That's the way it works. It's like when we see something new come up that challenges our business idea, we try to kill it. forget it. You can't do it because you just help them. So it's the customers, the new business, all the people on the world is driving demand. How about the internet? This is also from the Internet Society report. This is 10-year infographics of some interesting things that happened the last 10 years, and it's a lot. I'm not going to go into all details, but interesting to see the Kevin Kelly speech was back there 2007 and very close to the launch of the iPhone. And we all know what the iPhone did to everything, changed everything. And the short summary, I can't do the big summary of Kevin Kelly's speech, is that the internet have gone through 3 phases. It's in the 3rd phase now. First it linked computers, then it linked web pages, and then it linked documents. The next phase will be linking data, linking ideas, linking sensors, sort of closing in to be artificial intelligence. That's the next thing, he said already then. And I think we are really going there. And looking at this and the Nordics, you can say that we've always been in the forefront of the ICT arena. The first 4G back in 2009 was up here. I think it was in Sweden. Estonia has been really in the forefront on digital development. They were the first country to accept legally binding elections online. We did the first terabit optical trial. We were the first with 100G networks. And even before, we were great in mobile. We were first of 1G, 1981. Led the development of 2G. And Finland was the first country to hand out licenses on 3G, and Telia and Sonera at that time got 1 each. We were the first to sell wavelengths. It's another way of selling traffic on the internet. We had some horrible histories about something called WAP and DOF, which was the first mistake trying to do something that Apple has done now, sort of connecting like far too complicated, but you have to do mistakes to learn. And we were the first European IPv6. IPv6 is the new addressing system on the internet because IPv4 has run out of numbers. And with IPv6, everything will be solved for eternity. So we have a good history and a good background. But what we see now, the developing countries already, let's see if I get it right, already back in 2008, they have more than 50% of the world's internet users. And now in 2013-12, more than 50% of the mobile broadband subscribers. And looking at the growth there, it's changing. Exploding bandwidth. And this you normally see. Technicians' way of showing bandwidth from 96. ISDN, DSL, ADSL, ADSL times 2, VDSL, VDSL, and then fiber. But below you see the driving things. And one thing is that I think is really interesting looking at this. We're moving up now, the full 3D, real-time voice, virtual reality, sort of bringing the world around. And I would sort of recommend you, I had met David from Neuralize yesterday evening. He talked about, he has the latest development kit for Oculus Rift. You know those goggles? That totally immerses you into a new reality. And he's going to demo that at 15:50 today. So I will definitely try to be there and see what's coming up. And it's just growing. And it's no sort of correlance with, it doesn't correlate with up and down turns in the economy. It's just growing, up, up, up. This is actually traffic on our own net, so we are measuring. It's not Cisco figures, it's a TSIC net. And of course we have to follow, but we have another scale. Instead of megabits per second, we're talking about gigabits up there, and going towards terabit scale transport services on the internet. And we also, on our net, can see destinations changing. We have already touched upon this. A shift to mobile devices. I suppose some of you, most of you, this picture is almost overused, the left one. It's about the inauguration of the Pope back in 2005 and 2013. Quite a difference in a few years. What happened? And the growth of mobile broadband in emerging Pacific, 474%. Everything goes mobile. It's amazing. Video. Everyone's talked about, even though Doug Richards says that the video is not the big thing. But right now it is. And I think, okay, games. These are games, yeah? But these are not games to buy. These are streaming of games, watching other people play by a company called Twitch that was just acquired by Amazon. Google wanted to buy them, but the antitrust said you can't have Google, YouTube, and this something. So Amazon bought this. And this is a huge arena where people watch other people play games. We have one guy in Sweden, he's called PewDiePie, really crazy. He's playing games, filming himself. He's really silly. If you in our age look at him, you think, what the heck is this? But he has billions of users. I think every year he earns like something like 2 million euro just for feeding to YouTube when he's playing games and acting silly. He's bigger than any channel, any famous channel on YouTube. People want to watch other people play. And you have the esports. It's bigger than normal sports. We also see more in-region traffic because content is getting more local. People generate it locally. And therefore, we need support by these CDN networks. So we see a lot of traffic is circulating in the edges. For us, of course, that should be a bad story, that we don't have to connect it over a global fiber backbone, but there are other business opportunities. We also see more data centers build up, like one user interaction touches at least four data centers. If we do an update, that has to be replicated. And it's sort of scaling up everything. And we talked of the mega data centers. And it's always winter pictures. It looks very nice. Luleå and Hamina, the pulp. I think it's really interesting with this, with the old industry, the pulp industry now is reborn the facilities into something new. It's really, in the end, good. So, what does this mean? It means that before we could predict what type of traffic patterns there were on the internet because it was possible to calculate. We could dimension after that. Now we don't know. When is the next Gangnam Style or the next big game event or a launch of iOS 8? How will that boom on the internet and where? Because everyone is generating. So we really need to be much more agile in capacity and building up. And that's for all of us in this industry. And that's the age of the customer. We can't sort of say, stop, please slow down. We have to plan to build out. We have to listen on what's happening and be much more agile. So, how does this... I have 5 minutes left. Go to data centers. Yep, we have touched upon it. It should be an all-year cool climate, chilly. You need green energy, political stability, low seismographic activities, IT and power knowledge experience. I say the bottom ones are okay, if I could live there, but how many wants to live in this freezing cold, dark half-the-year climates? No one wants to live there, so we need to connect that sort of to the people, of course. And the good thing is that we can do that. These are just examples of different aspects. We have our global backbone on the bottom, connecting to ISPs, connecting to users. Then you have different solutions to the left, sort of building their own backbone by connecting different physical locations with big cables on the net. So it physically is separated, but it's actually touched together. The other one is spreading content in a CDN network. That they could do. But if we just put an extension cord, we're great in building fiber, like we did up to Luleå for Facebook. fiber direct connection down to our IP network, AS 1299, that covers the whole world. Suddenly, Luleå is at the center of the world, in the digital world. Also Hamina or whatever place here in Finland, we just plug it in to our global backbone and it's part of the world. And that's amazing. Extension cords, and they are already there. And we talked about the milliseconds. I think within 30 milliseconds there are millions of people here in Europe, but it's not the latency that is the big problem today. It's security and stability and knowing what it is. And just to be politically correct, it's not only us doing this, there are other actors. This is from the IP ranking, just to show you this. The left one is IPv4, the right one is IPv6. IPv4 is now like 99.45% of the traffic is IPv4. So it's a really small portion, and therefore it's very volatile, the big customer changes and the scale or the top list changes. And I say some big names fall away. Level 3 is 2 now. It used to be Global Crossing and Level 3, and Level 3 sort of bought one of them. And it says TeliaSonera International Carrier rises, and you say, what? You have a red arrow going down, but it's down from #1 position. Now that's just because this was from yesterday. It's because we just have been up on #1 and turned back again. So we've actually gone from #7 to #21 in just a few years in connectivity. But eventually we all have to go over to IPv6. We are ready. We have the network in place. But it's a complete reprogramming of the complete system. And today it's mainly big players. But in our net, it's already there. We run it in parallel. So that's the next thing. And then we can connect all these fantastic measurement devices with no problem. So to summarize, we are in the age of the customer. We have digital disruption, challenging business ideas. Everything goes mobile. And this is the sort of basis for what's driving demand, not only in traffic, but also in what type of response you need from your suppliers. It should be quick, not 10 years planning. It should be agile. And of course, the internet is the key executing infrastructure for this, enabling innovation in business and throughout society. So connectivity has gone from best effort, which it used to be on the internet. Best effort, it's okay if it comes, which route it takes, because it's free routing. But now it's business critical. And that puts new demands on our industry. We as a company have actually defined 10 principles we call carrier declarations that we believe everyone should fulfill. It has to do by understanding your customer, always having redundancy, etc., etc. And of course, we can't predict the future. That was what Doug started his speech with. He can't say anything about the future, but we know that things will happen, more than we believe will happen. So we just have to be as ready as we can. And finally, don't you agree? The Nordics, with the power, with the political stability, the connectivity, the fantastic people, these type of seminars, events, it's really the prime spot for data centers. And just a final touch point connecting to one of our blogs, I think this is quite funny. The Flat Earth Society still believe the Earth is flat. Maybe they are right, but they didn't just foresee the clouds. A bit funny, I think. So let's together carry the big ideas of tomorrow, shape this industry. And we have to do it as a joint team. The power, the connectivity, the regions, the construction builders, everyone needs to work together because the customer wants one solution. And that's our success in Facebook that we did, in other, when the customer comes to this and see a joint effort from people working together, creating a solution based on their needs, understanding their needs, and really delivering. So cooperation, more of these sessions, is really, really important. So you could say, like an analogy, you know, I don't know how many have kids. In Sweden we talked about the curling parents. You curled for your kids so they didn't have to worry about everything. It was a bad thing. But I think the thing that we should do for our customers now is curling. So, you know, wipe the brush in front of them so that it's a smooth way for them moving forward. I think that is it. Any questions on this?
Any questions? Ian, well.
Thanks, interesting. Can you tell us what bandwidth you installed for Facebook in northern Sweden?
I know.
You won't, or you don't know?
No. The trick with all this, like, we have actually 9 out of 10 content providers as customers. We can't tell you who, therefore we can't say 10 out of 10. They have many different suppliers. In the internet normally you have not just one supplier, you have like 3 carriers, maybe 2 premium and 1 low cost, and then you share the traffic. And if they start talking about one, they have to start talking about the others. And these, like Facebook, what we can say is the only thing that is published in the press release on our homepage, unfortunately. It's a lot of sort of secret around this. But it's enough. It's like a Bentley or Rolls Royce, you know, it's enough.
So you say,
yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, Richard, thank you very much. That was really, really fun. Thank you.